Hello everyone, this is the third video in the Python beginner series. Today we will be looking at Python lists. So, what are Python lists? Python list is a standard data type in Python that is a sequence data type. What do I mean by that? That it is a sequence that contains comma separated values and the values can be of any types. A list in Python is denoted by square brackets. Now, let's just have a look at some examples. For example, if I want to create a list in Python, I will do something like this, a square bracket for denoting the starting of the list, and then I can type the elements in. For example, if I want to create a list of integers, I will simply give the integers. For example, 1 as the first element, then I will give a comma to denote that the element uh, has been ended. Then I will give the second element, then third, and then fourth. And now, if I want to end my list here, so I will just give another square bracket to denote that I want to end the list. So now what we have created here is a list that contains 4 elements and all of them are integers. Each in list, each element is separated by comma, and we denote list as square bracket. So now if I press enter, we can see Python shows no error and it has created a list of integers. Now it is not necessary that all the elements or all the values that you have in list are of same data type. For example, if I want to create a list containing multiple data types, so I can also do this thing in Python. For example, if I want to create a list having first element as integer, then I can also have second element as string. I can also have element as float. I can also have a Python keyword, or that is a, sorry, not a Python keyword. It is basically a Boolean data type that is also a Python keyword. And for other Python keywords, we cannot store them in lists. We are able to do for true because it is a Boolean data type. That means basically it is a data type in Python. So now if we press enter, here we can see Python shows no error. So now what we have created here is, this is a list that contains 4 elements of different data types having first element as integer, second element as string, that is a hello, third element as 3.5, that is a float, and the last one is true, that is Boolean data type. Now we can see that we have created our list, but we cannot use it in our programs if we want to use in the further coming lines of code. This is because we haven't stored this list in some variable. That means we have not created a way to access it. We have just created it in Python and we do not have a way to access it. So for doing for having the access of the list in the coming lines of code, we have to store it in some variable. So for example, let's just have a variable L and I will just copy and paste the list here. Copy, paste. Now if I press enter, we can see that Python has created list and it has assigned the list to our variable L. Now if we want to see the list that we have created, we can simply write print L, or since we are in our Python console or our Python console, so we can simply also write L. Now if I write print L, we get the same result. So here we can see that we have created our list and assigned it to a variable so that we can use it in our further programs. Now, so let us look at how we can access each element of a list. For example, if you do not want to see the whole list, you want to just have access to the second element. Here in case it is hello, or the third element, that is 3.5. So how do we do that in Python? So we do something like this. First we type the name of the list, then we give square brackets. Oh, sorry, because let's just first understand the concept in Python. So now in Python, so in Python list, basically what we have is we index each element of a list, as in books we index chapter. For example, what chapter number 1, chapter number 2, chapter number 3. Similarly, in Python we also give specific numbers to specific to elements depending on their position in list. For example, this is the first element, so we will get a specific number to it. This is a second element, so we will get a specific number to it. That will be the index of the element in the list. Now normally we just start indexing from 1. For example, you might think that in the list this is the first element, so we will assign it an index 1, and to it, to the hello string, a 2, and to the to the float number, that is the third element in the list, we will assign it an index of 3, and to the last one, that is the fourth element in the string. So normally we will just assign it an index of 4, but that is not the case in Python. In Python we start indexing by number 0. For example, if this is the first element in Python, so we will give an index of 0 to this. And similarly, since this is the second element in the Python, so we will give an index of 2 to this. And similarly to the third one, we will give an index of 3. Sorry, to the third one we will give an index of 2, and to the last one, since it is the fourth element, we will give the element an index of 3. Now, an easy way to remember that in Python list, an element has the index 1 less than its position in the list. Now, let's just see how we can access them. So as I was previously mentioning that we can do something like this. So for accessing element, we can simply type the name of the list, then give square brackets, and similarly we can give the index of the element in the square bracket. For example, if I want to access to the first element, I can give its index, that will be 0. Now if I press enter, we can see it has returned us 1. Similarly, if I want to access the second element, we can simply give its index, that is 1 less than its position in the list. Now we can see it has given us hello. Similarly, if I want to access the last element, I can type something like this. Now since it is the fourth element, so it will have an index of 3. Press enter, it gives us true. Now since we can access each elements in our list, now wait a minute. So sorry for the pause, guys. So as we have looked how we can access the element in the list. So now if you want to use them in the further coming lines of code, we can also assign them to a variable. For example, if we want to assign to a variable x, we can simply write L in the element that we want to assign. In this case, if we want to assign third element of the list, that means we will give it index as 2. That means 1 less than the position of the element. Then we enter x, it gives us the value of 3.5. That is the third element in the list. So now in Python list, we can access each element by its index. Now, what if you want to change the element in a list? For example, if I have created this list, in this example, if I want to just have false in place of this true, so how I can do this? One way is to just create a new list, but that is not a efficient way. So how we can do how we can change the element in place? That means that without not creating a new list, we can do it simply just by how we access the element of list. For example, for accessing this last element, we will give its index as 3, and give we will type equal for assign, that is assignment operator for assigning values, and we will type false. uh, False. Now what does this line means? Here we are saying that access the element of the list. We are saying here that to the third element, to the element having index 3 in the list L, assigned a value of false. So if we press enter here, we can see Python shows no error. Now if we have a look at our list, we can see here now it stores the value as false. Similarly, we can do this for the other elements. That is, for the first element, if we don't want 1 here, we can simply assign it another value. That means index 0, then we can give it a whatever value that we want. For example, in this case, let's just have an example of 5. Now, here we can see that we have modified our list. Initially, it was having its first element as 1 and last element as true. But now the first element is 5 and the last one is false. Now, in Python, uh, I have talked about indexing, so there are basically two ways of list indexing in Python. The one that we have talked here is the list indexing. That means assigning first element the index of 0, 1, 2, and so on and so forth. That is known as forward indexing. But in Python, we have another way of indexing, that is a backward indexing. And for this, let's just have a look at this diagram. Here, we can see that we have a list that stores string characters. Here we can see the first one is P, second one is R, second one is R, third one is O, fourth one is B, and the last one is fourth. Sorry, the last one is E. So as we can see, the way we have talked about, this is the forward indexing. The first element will be assigned a value of or an index of 0. The second one is will be assigned an index of 1, and the O will be assigned an index of 2. Fourth one will be assigned an index of 3, and the last one, that is the fifth element, will be assigned an index of fourth. Now, what is negative indexing or backward indexing? In backward indexing, we start indexing the elements from the last element of the list or from the backwards of the list. For example, in this case, we will start from E, and we use negative numbers for the backward indexing. For example, here the E is the first element from the last, so we will give it an index of -1. Similarly, it has the same, B has the second position from last of the list or from backward of the list, so it will have a value of 2. And similarly, from end of the list, O has third position, it will have -3 as its backward index, and similarly R has fourth position, so it will have an index of -4, and similarly P will have an index of -5. So we can also use negative indexes or index as we use the forward index. For example, if you go to our Python program here, if we want to access the last element, so we can access it by forward indexing. For example, the way that we have learned, uh, by typing this forward index, we get false. Similarly, we can get it by its backward index. That means since it's the last element, so it will have a backward index of -1. Now, if we press enter, Python shows no error and gives us the value of false. That is the value of the last element. Similarly, we can also access the first element here, that will have an backward index of -5. Sorry, oh, so Python is giving us an error of list index out of range. Why? Because here in our list we have only 4 elements. That means there is no element on the index 5. So from here we can see 1, 2, 3, and 4. So fifth is the fourth element from end. So it will have an index of -4. So if we type -4, now everything is fine. We can see it is giving us the value of 5. So now we have learned about how to create Python list, how to access its each element, and how to modify a list without creating a new list. We have also seen how we can uh, how we index for in Python list, that is forward indexing and backward indexing. Now let's talk about some built-in Python function that we can use on sequence data type. In this case, we are talking about list. So if we want to know the number of elements in a list, how we can know? The one way is that we can just print the list and just count them manually, but that will not work for the list that have elements like 1,000 elements or a 10,000 elements. So if we want to know the number of elements in a list or the length of the list, if we say, so for that we use Python's built-in len function. That is, we type it like this, len function, and inside the parentheses, if we give the variable of the list that we have assigned to the list here, and then we press enter, we can see it is giving us 4. That is the length of the list or the number of elements in the list. Similarly, we can also create a new list as new list and 1, 2, 3, hello, then 0.5. Now, if you want to know the length of this new list, we can simply type similar to what we have done earlier. That is len, then in the parentheses, the name of the list or the variable of the list. Here we can see it is giving us 5. Here we can see that it has 5 elements. Now, the other function that we can use on list is basically this function this built-in function we can use on any data type. What it does is that it tells us the data type of the value that we type in inside the parentheses, and that is the type function or the type built-in function in Python. For example, if we do like this, type, then in the parentheses we give L, then it says class list. That means it is a list data type. Now we can also use it on integers or any data type. For example, if I type do like this, type 1. Now we can see that 1 is an integer, so it will return as class integer. That means an integer data type. Similarly, let us just have a look another example. We can do like this, true. Now most of you have already guessed the answer. Since we know that true is a Boolean data type, so it will return us bool. And so it will return us bool. That means it is a Boolean data type. All right. So I think I will end the video here. Hope you guys like the video. If you so please share, subscribe, and like the video. And I will see you in the next video.